Hey guys, Buckeye Bar Guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, and that way, anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody. Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
And today's date is Friday, August 27th. And we are officially 6 days until the start of the Ohio State season. And we're officially literally a few hours until less than 24 hours from the start of the college football season, as at least for the big boys, as week 0, because we can't name it week 1.
Week 0 is upon us,
as coming. So we got Nebraska, Illinois tomorrow. I'll talk about that in a second. So we'll basically the big things we'll go through tonight is we have 2 big press conferences this week, and then we will also kind of just go through our predictions for the season. Just a couple little items just quickly get over before we get into that. So there was the big announcement for the alliance, the Grand Alliance. Basically, I think everybody knows now what was said. It's as of now, it just seems like a bunch of nothing. So until it's actually something, then it's really nothing. I mean, the only thing I really enjoyed was literally that they said that when somebody asked one of them, I think it was the Pac-12's commissioner, that if they signed some sort of agreement, and it's like, no, we looked in each other's eyes, and and then when I heard that, that's about as much as I wanted to hear for the thing. I'm like, they looked into each other's souls, and we're not going to steal each other's teams from us. Darn it.
I mean, every time one of these guys talk, doesn't it just make you wish more and more that Ohio State was a part of the SEC?
Yeah, sadly, that's kind of how I'm feeling that.
Or at least we had competent leadership. I don't know. I don't want to be.
Maybe we just need to go grab a few decent schools and go save the Big 12. I don't know.
It'd be interesting.
But no, and honestly, if we really listen to those two, the conversation, the Pac-12 commissioner, not bad. I actually like the ACC commissioner. Kevin Warren is like so far out of his depth though, that it's like becoming like very obvious that, he's, just not. Like, I know the presidents run it. He's the spokesperson. Basically, he's the face of the conference, but he's a bad face, man. He's and then he's like talking on the Big Ten Network, and I know he knows that the Ohio State Oregon game was scheduled years ago, and like we do the ACC Big Ten Challenge, but it's like he's trying to use those as an examples of what like the alliance can be. When like Dave Resnick asked him, like, well, what do you kind of expect in the future of this alliance? He's like, well, look at Ohio State, Oregon are playing each other, and we do this ACC Big Ten. Yeah, well, we've been doing that for years, and
didn't have an alliance yet.
Delaney was the commissioner when Ohio State and Oregon did the schedule. So like,
right. Yeah.
So
that guy's got his head so far up his own ass. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel weird. He's just not it. And I mean, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. The SEC Commissioner Sankey, he was on with Feinbaum, like I think yesterday, and he kind of basically said, "Yep, we don't really, pretty much that we don't care about any of this stuff." And and it just seems it's crazier and crazier every day when it seems like he's the competent guy in the room. That I mean, he actually sent a little dig at the Big Ten on the Feinbaum show, and I don't know it verbatim. I'm just paraphrasing, but he's like, hey, we didn't have any non-conference games last year neither, but that was all thanks to the Big Ten, and basically, so Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to come with college football over the next several years. I personally think that this alliance is that I don't think anybody should really look much into it. They're basically doing something because they felt like they had to do something. I think they're just using this as a voting block. They know college football is going in a different direction. They understand that they're going to go in the different direction too, but I think they wanted to make sure it's going into the direction that they want it to go into at the end of the day, and that it's not the SEC that's basically driving the car. If the SEC wants, they're going to be the passenger in the car. We have more votes than you guys do. We all know it's going this way, but it's not going to be you that's directing the car. So we'll see when all that comes to a head, but it's probably still a few years away. That really anything happens. Wanted to quickly talk about, so it is week 0 is upon us, Illinois, Nebraska. This was a very, very big game for Scott Frost because, I know that everybody's singing Kumbaya there right now, but he hasn't won in Lincoln yet. They have a new athletic director that's a big Nebraska guy too. He just like Frost is. He played for Nebraska. He's part of the glory days. I mean, us Buckeye fans, anybody that was alive and remembers the 2002 season very well. I mean, Trev Alberts was basically mini-me to Mark May on ESPN, and they was like they fed off of each other, and so they could possibly get out of his contract if this NCAA violation ends up being something legitimate, so this could be a really big thing. I was listening to Josh Perry talk a little bit on the radio today from, he did the Big Ten tours with Resniv and DiNardo and Howard Griffith. And he's basically just saying that, there's a lot of things he liked about Nebraska when he visited Nebraska. And granted, I think that was their first stop or like their third stop. So it was very early. And he even said that it's like, hey, this was very early in the trip. So, things could have changed, but he's like, he wasn't that impressed a lot with their trenches. And he's like, hey, Illinois is going to be a much tougher team than they've been in years past because, Brett Bielema's the coach now. So they're going to be really focused on the trenches. They're going to be focused on their running game. They're going to be focused on not making mistakes. And they actually had a pretty good defense under Lovey to begin with. So, they got some pieces there. And Scott Frost, this is like a must-win game for him. Like, he loses tomorrow, it could be a real bad domino effect of, they're not going to fire him on Sunday, but,
you hope not.
They got Oklahoma in a few weeks, man. And Oklahoma, if Oklahoma wipes the floor with them and then they don't do well in the Big Ten, I don't know what's going to happen with that whole thing.
Yeah. I understand when you could say, you got to give coaches time. Your program isn't what it used to be, or your program's not, a 10. So you can't, don't expect a coach to go undefeated with a program that, can't go undefeated. You shouldn't be getting rid of guys just because, they're above average or whatever. But Scott Frost has not been average. He's been below average, So, yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's domino effect. Yeah, it could be something that just real bad start to the year. Bad taste in people's mouths, especially if they don't look good. I'm expecting it to be kind of sloppy on both ends just because it's the first game of the year. Lovey, though, what a lot of people might not give him credit for, and I don't know with who all came back or not. I'm not really studying up on Illinois right now, but I remember because they were the first game Ohio State was supposed to open up with I think it was the revised schedule.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had looked into them last year, and they had a good offensive line coming back, and I don't know. I know all those guys got an extra year of eligibility, so they might have all the pieces right now that Bielema, if he gets his his line schematics going,
his identity. What Brett Bielema's going to do, and he's not playing around with anything. It's smash mouth football. That's how he did it at Wisconsin. That's how he did it at Arkansas, and that's how he's going to do it at Illinois because
with lesser programs, if you can get a line and you can get a running back and you can get running backs and you can get linemen in the Midwest, you don't have to go out, looking all around the country for big time skill players and,
right.
Defensive linemen that are going to get 20 sacks in a season. I mean, he's not going for that. I mean, you can find big line farm boys in the Midwest that can play running football. So you know what he's going to do, and he ain't going to change that identity. And
right.
So
and if these guys buy into his identity right away, I mean, they can surprise some people. Like you said, Lovey had a good defense.
Yeah. So
I think Cornhuskers are giving 7 right now.
I think so. I thought that's the last line. I'm not going to look it up this minute, but that's what I saw. So it was something like around there. It was like a touchdown favorite, earlier in the week.
Am I crazy? I think Illinois is going to win outright.
It could happen, man. I mean, I enjoy the Nebraska fans. We have a lot of Nebraska fans that follow us. They're good people. I want to see Nebraska, James Laurinaitis, he brought up a good point when they brought Nebraska into the Big Ten, a couple years ago, and then then they switched it to East and West and from leaders and legends. He's like, what Jim Delaney's thought process was right then. He's like, I'm going to have Ohio State and Michigan play Penn State in the middle of the season, and these are going to be basically all undefeated teams, and, they're going to somebody's going to come out of that undefeated or with one loss. They'll all have one losses. Then Ohio State, Michigan will play each other undefeated or one loss at the end of the year, and then they're going to go play an undefeated or one loss Nebraska in the Big Ten championship, and It's like money upon money upon money, and it's just the Nebraska was brought into the conference. Everybody knows how good Wisconsin is on that side, but it was basically the thought process. It was, you had Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State on the one side, and you had Wisconsin, Nebraska on the other side, and maybe you get an Iowa every so often. They're, battling that. I don't think anybody ever expected it was going to be Northwestern. And, so it's like, I think they were put in the middle in their mindset that I'm going to have Cornhusker fans and I'm going to have Buckeye fans or Michigan fans and Penn State fans. And that's what my Indianapolis game is going to be. And it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Now, Ohio State's been to a lot of those championship games, so it's still huge because of that, but it has not went the way that the Big Ten kind of expected it to go, with Nebraska. So, I hope they win tomorrow. I think they will win, but because I still want to see it from Illinois. But if they gets into a real slugfest tomorrow, I don't know if, especially if their trenches aren't really that good, especially if their defensive line ain't that good, and Illinois starts establishing a running game on them, it could be a very interesting game. And then if they lose, it would be interesting to see how things start progressing. I believe they played Buffalo. I thought that's what I heard somebody say today. That's not an easy win against a MAC school. Buffalo is usually pretty good, and they do got some returning players this year. And Oklahoma is, they're going to be a huge dog against Oklahoma. And,
yeah.
And there's all those rumors that they wanted to bounce out of the Oklahoma game, and Frost was trying everything to get out of that game. And, so I don't know, Oklahoma might be going in the mindset with embarrassing them in the first place. So,
yeah, they could. Yep, they do play Buffalo week 3 or week 2, I guess it would be, not week 3 because they're in week 0, and then Oklahoma's in week 3.
Yeah. So, yep, that'll be an interesting one. All right, so we're gonna get into the press conferences. I'll start with Hartline, just because I have the Hartline press conference pulled up here. So we'll start with that one first. First question he actually took, it was about Cam Babb, and just, he was asked about, what his feelings are that he was named a captain, and, you could tell Hartline has a lot of admiration for him. I didn't realize he had 4 ACL tears. I'm guessing his latest injury is another ACL tear, but the fact that he's still on the team, that he just decided, I'm just going to take my hardship and finish out my college education and I mean, kudos to him. I mean, he got his degree. I mean, but I'm glad he got named captain. And it seemed like, Hartline said everybody, just loves him, and they love just his willingness to want to still compete even with everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's tragic. You want to see the guy succeed, but he's kept good spirits about him. Sounds like he's a hell of a leader for that team. Keeping everyone else positive, keeping everyone else moving. So if you can't do it on the field, at least, you be that type of leader off the field.
Yeah. And then basically, he was asked on the other captain for his room, Olave, and he just said, Chris does everything he does on the field, he does it off the field too. And, he's pretty much a true leader, and, everybody respects him. And, it sounds like that he has a lot of, we've never ever heard anything bad about Chris Olave. From everything anybody's heard, he's just a high character person to begin with. And
right.
It sounds like he leads by example, and, you hear good things about him. So I think, Chris Olave was definitely somebody that I thought was a no-brainer as a captain. I kind of figured he would get, so, that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. Olave is the leader of that room.
Yeah. And, and I kind of heard something interesting from, Laurinaitis, him and Hartline, they know each other from back in their playing days, and, they basically had a very similar NFL careers, played in the NFL at the same time. They're very, you can tell that they're friends. They still talk to each other, off the record and stuff like that. And, Laurinaitis said, he's like, hey, the way he coaches that room is that, we all compete against each other, but you guys also are your teammates and stuff like that. And you older guys, you are going to take these younger guys under your wings, and you're going to teach them the proper way to how to be Buckeyes and stuff like that. And everything we've always heard that, that's how Olave and Wilson and the couple guys before them, some of these other receivers have all been that, you do everything the right way. So the young kids learn from you by watching you do it. But then at the same time, you make sure that they're studying their films, and, that they're paying attention, and you ask them questions on films, and when the coach gets hard on one of them, you go take them into the corner, and you talk them through it, and you basically do everything there. You're there to make them better players too. And so I always like that. The best football teams are the ones. Football teams you can't have like you can in basketball and stuff like that, where superstars can be a superstar. You need a lot of unselfish players, and, it definitely seems like that's exactly what this room is like.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's any secret or surprise. This is, if not, the most talented, unit on Ohio State's team. Is one of the top two, maybe top three, whatever, if you include both lines. I think most people would, generally consider this would be Ohio State's strongest unit because of just how high these recruits have been over the last couple of years. What's crazy to think about is you probably still have a top 3 wide receiver room if you don't add anything past Olave and Garrett Wilson. But now that you have all those 5 stars that came in after them, now you have the number 1, receiving room in the country.
Well, it's also kind of crazy to think of, like, imagine if I know Wilson could not have left last year, correct?
No, he was a true sophomore.
Yeah, he's a true sophomore. So
they're both leaving after this year.
Yeah. But, Olave could have, and let's even say hypothetically Wilson could have, with all the talent they got there, it might have been a lot of unproven talent. They're still arguably one of the best receiving rooms in talent, because they're just loaded from top to bottom. And, when Olave said he was coming back, though, that just made the room even better. And it was like, wow, this is going to be, you knew it was going to be a freaky room to begin with just Garrett Wilson still back. But now it's like Olave's back too. And it's like, crap, man, this is like, I can't believe the level of talent. And, Hartline pretty much even made it. He's like, hey, he pretty much alluded that we can go play with anybody. And, and they're not afraid of that. We'll line up. I mean, he talked about CJ Stroud, and he's like, hey, our job's to get open, and his job's to get us the ball. He's like, and he's doing a great job in practice. He's like, but our guys are there for him, and they're going to be there to pick him up. He's not, on Stroud, he's happy when he makes a good play, but he doesn't get down on himself when he makes a bad play. And, sounds like he's from at least the receivers coach perspective that, we could be expecting a lot of great things from him this year.
Yeah. And I don't want to be too bold about what I'm going to say next. I also don't want to be like poo-poo it too much either. But so let's say what are there, 130 teams?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So this might be a crazy statement. I would say out of 100 teams, so I'm give 30 teams the benefit of the doubt that they have someone better, one person better than all of our top 6 guys. So I would say out of 100 teams, I would bet that the top 6 from Ohio State wide receiver, they would be, any one of those 6 guys would be the number 1 receiver at 100 colleges in the country.
I don't think I disagree with that. It's like, I mean, you take all the real big boy schools out of it. Mm-hmm. So probably everybody easily outside the top 25. That's a true statement. And probably a lot of teams in the top 25.
Probably damn close. Right.
I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, I'm not really sure. Like, I'm trying to think what the Big Ten has. And, like, I don't know if, does Michigan have a receiver that's better than anybody that's, at least better than our top 4 guys? Like,
Ronnie Bell's good, but I don't know if he's better than any of those top 6 guys.
Ronnie Bell wouldn't be starting in this offense.
He wouldn't be one of the first 3 out there. I mean, would he be, he wouldn't be, I don't think he'd be in front of Ibuka if you keep him in the slot. I don't know if he cracks the top 6 in this offense.
It's an interesting perspective. I definitely don't think you're wrong on it. I think that there's it's in that ballpark of 100 teams. I mean, maybe a couple of teams more, a couple of teams less, but yeah, I think that's a fair statement. And, it's
scary to think about. I mean, if Stroud, and I don't have any reason to doubt CJ Stroud's ability. So if the line keeps him upright, I don't know. I'd be scared if I'm the other teams.
Yeah. I thought it was funny. So during the press conference, somebody asked him that was trying to put him on the spot, like, where's Olave actually starting? And he's like, he's starting a receiver. And, he's like, well, what position? All of them. And then they asked, he's like, well, what about this guy? He's like, all of them. All my guys can play every position. And, he got into it further, and he's like, literally his 3 starting receivers, Wilson, Olave, and JSN, he's like, they could play every wide receiver position that we have out there. He's like, I'm not afraid. And when we're going to talk about Barnes next, he had a lot of the same stuff to say. These guys are learning everything because, they're going to be switched around in different spots depending on who personnel on the field and,
let's face it, Ohio State, I mean, they're young at these spots. They don't know what the best lineup is at this time.
He mentioned that too. He's like, hey, he's like, a lot of these, we've lost a lot of playing time last year in the off season. And he's like, basically from, JSN and Fleming all the way down to the 3 freshmen. He's like, you don't realize how much better kids can get within 6 months. He's like, it's night and day, even when they were in the spring. And like, I mean, it's crazy to think when you think about just how high these guys were. And, I think it was Tim May. He was kind of making a joke, and then he's like, I have a feeling that, Marvin Harrison Jr. had a couple dinners in his lifetime with a Hall of Famer. And, Hartline is like, yeah, I would say that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, and that's like the other thing, like when we talk about they can play every position. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., you look at him, you don't think he's a slot receiver, but I mean, how you saw him play in the spring game and what you've heard about him, he could easily be a slot receiver. Like, like, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. Another thing, I mean, this isn't, again, the press conference. This is, Another thing Laurinaitis said about Hartline this week that I just thought of, he was talking about like how he is with recruiting. He's like, the crazy thing about that is, he doesn't BS these kids. He's like, I'm going to bring you in the best, wide receiver room in the country. And, there's no guarantees. All I'm going to guarantee you is if you stick with it, you're going to be a much better player than you are right now. And you're going to get every opportunity to play, but you're going to have to prove yourself. And, and you're going to be going up against the best guys that are going to be in your room with you. And it resonates with these kids because I still can't believe they've gotten this many kids. I mean, I know college football is a little different now than it was even a few years ago where, you never saw two top running backs go in the same class at the same school or two top quarterbacks because, everybody wants to be the man. Right. And even a receiver, you never got like, and, I know Mookie Cooper left and G. Scott ended up playing more of a tight end, but you don't get those four types of receivers in the same class. And then you don't follow it up with Abuka Harrison Jr. and, Jaden Bauer in the following class. And you don't follow that up. I mean, I know he's not signed yet with the number one receiver and then a couple other high level receivers in the following class. And when you already have Garrett Wilson that came in prior to that. So it's like, that's just crazy. I mean, it's just one, and I know a lot of people make a big deal that, well, he's signed the top receiver in the last how many classes and, and then you got another one coming in. It's like, well, yeah, but he's also bringing in 3-4 guys every class that are top 15 receivers.
Right. And I mean, that's the way college football has been going. Look at the last 3 national championships. I mean, the team that won was the team, and I know Clemson had a ton of talent on the defensive line. I mean, that helped so much shut down Alabama in that game, but just look at those 3 teams, what they did, Justin Ross and T. Higgins, and then Burrow had 4 people. And of course, I mean, firsthand, we saw it last year, Devontae Smith and Michi or whatever, Burn Ohio State. I mean, that's just, you need that to win national titles right now.
Yeah. Going back to this area, I mean, he had a lot of good things to say about Fleming. Basically, he said he's running around like a freight train. I saw that. Yep. Yeah. And he said he's definitely he's coming back. He's healthy. He's playing extremely hard in practice. He's doing good things. Thinks he's going to be definitely a big time impact this year, especially on special teams. He said he'll be out there on special teams. He'll be there in the offense. So you're expecting a lot of good things. What he said about JSN though, I mean, he said that, he's just like a nasty run blocker, I guess, and that he's just dominating people on run blocking. So, I mean, that's always been the Ohio State way for the last how many coaches. But, I like hearing that because that always makes you think of, the guys like, when, Gonzo and Devin Smith and some of those guys would get dirty, messing up people in the trenches in the running game. So,
Julian Fleming and Marvin Harrison, they look like they can mess some people up on blocks too.
Oh yeah, definitely. He on his 3 freshman receivers, I mean, I guess both Harrison and Mecca, they both have 4.0 so far. And, he said Ballard's doing good in school too. And it's like, I mean, they took summer classes and they were from the spring and, so it's a good thing to see. A lot gets made about, not to do it, to take the Cardell code. These guys don't go to their play school. And I know a lot of these have bigger goals of, going to the NFL and stuff like that. But college football is what it is. I mean, you got to go to class, you got to study, whether you're taking online classes or actually physically going to a class, you got a lot on your plate. You're studying game film and then also doing homework and stuff like that. So it's no picnic to these guys, and to be able to hold a good GPA like that, that's pretty impressive for a couple freshmen. So,
I heard they're pretty good football players too.
He was asked on why JSN got the starting job, and he said because the best players play. So I think that says everything right there about what they're thinking about him. Sounds like I said, with his running back, and I mean, we've been hearing all kinds of great things about him. It sounds like he catches everything that's thrown to him, and He's just one of those guys.
It sounds like we have all of our guys catch everything that's thrown to them.
He's going to be very scary in the slot. And then when you saw like a Mecca during the spring game, it's like, man, if they get the Ryan Day crossing routes getting back into full thing, I mean, those two could like just feast on defenses, especially when you know that you have just two outside threats that, you can't have corners cheating in to looking in because you got Garrett Wilson and, Olave and then Fleming and Harrison on the outsides that are just, they'll run right by you. I mean, so.
Right. Yeah, I know. Scary.
So that was pretty much it on, most of the questions. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything big. Scrolling through this. No, that looks like all the major ones. So again, Brian, the thing, we've talked about this in the past, a lot of these coaches, they all have kind of unique, the ways they do interviews, but it's always they have so many impressive guys. Hartline, much more straightforward with a lot of his questions. But I mean, it's hard to say that him and LJ have not been the best coaching hires outside of the head coach in the last 10 years. I mean, outside maybe Ryan Day when he was hired as the offensive coordinator just because of what he ends up becoming. Maybe he inches him out, but, I mean, when you think about recruiting and what just those two guys have done on opposite sides, I mean, basically everything LJ's been doing, Hartline's doing the same thing on the other side of the ball. So it's like, and it's still wild to me that they have gotten the type of receivers they've gotten out of high school. I mean, Ohio State's had a good list of wide receivers and guys that have done a lot of great things. It's just, not a lot of them were big time headline stars coming out of high school, and it's just been different.
Some were running backs coming out of high school, some weren't receivers. I don't think, when you're talking about top end guys and just like you saw it when he came in 18, and I'm not taking anything away from, what Paris Campbell, Johnny Dixon, Terry McLaurin, what those guys wore, going into that year anyways. But you saw what he did with them immediately, just how productive, how good they were, from the jump. And he just keeps coaching these guys up to amazing levels, and he keeps recruiting in these top end guys. So I definitely don't think it's a stretch to say he has been their best hire. Just to look at where Ohio State was with receivers over, how many years, and especially, and not to take anything against, or away from Urban's coaching or go against Urban in any way, but that's not what his team's done. And now, him and Ryan Day have made it a way that they can have both things. They can do both, they can run and they can pass the ball, and not just pass the ball effectively, be one of the top 3 passing teams in the country.
Yeah. And I know Zach takes some offense to some of the stuff on Zach Smith online, and he's went back at some media reporters on Twitter, which are entertaining. Zach's very entertaining on Twitter. Not to take anything from him. He, when you go back and look at a lot of his being there, he was a very good recruiter. He did get some good players outside of the receiving room to Ohio State. He was also, him and LJ did a lot in the, that Hampton Roads area or the DMV area, so, he did do a lot of good recruiting. I will give him that. It's just, to me, it's different, and it's nothing that, it's not saying that he was a horrible receivers coach. It's just watching Ohio State during those eras. There wasn't a lot of difference between the Tressel eras. That there wasn't, they're college receivers, and they're not really meant to go out and run the most advanced, routes in the world. Urban's offense from Florida, he had very basic wide receiver routes. It was a lot of, those out routes towards the sideline or go deep. And, and he basically ran very basic 3-layer receiving things. You have a guy going short, a guy going middle, and a guy go long. And, that was a lot of Urban's offenses. And so, not taking anything away from Zach, it just, in a lot of ways, those were college offenses. And now it just seems like, Ryan Day, maybe he runs more of a pro style thing, but Hartline just trains these guys at a much different thing. They run a lot more pro routes, and Chris Olave is not the fastest guy in the world, but somehow he's always behind guys because it's like most of these cornerbacks don't understand these route concepts at all. And like, he just gets behind people because he runs a good crisp route and loses somebody. And there he is all alone 20 yards down the field.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
So it's just different. And, so Hartline, he's knocking it out of the park, both on the recruiting side of it and then on the development side of it and how these guys are playing on games. So, I mean, he's definitely, he's doing great things on both sides of it. So, it's just impressive. There's not much more to say about that. It will be very interesting over the next several years. Kind of what happens with him there. Is he, what's his, as Laurinaitis likes to say, I'm not 100% sure what his why is. He's not a guy that's, really begging for money, but does he want to be a head coach someday? You never know. I mean, I don't know what his goal aspirations are. And, does he want to be an offensive coordinator? Does he want to be a head coach? Does he want to go to the NFL and be a coach? So,
yeah,
I mean, there's going to be a lot of, there's already people knocking on his doors, and that's going to get even louder and louder now over the next several years, I would assume.
Sure.
Yeah. Not to spend too long on Matt Barnes, just because I can't find the article that I had, but, he said, Matt Barnes had, again, a lot of similarities to what kind of Hartline said is these guys are going to play multiple positions. And, he said that, it really kind of depends on who we play every week, and you're going to see changing lineups, and there's going to be days we're going to have more of a slot corner out there and days that we're going to have more of a safety out there. And, it kind of just doesn't matter, and it matters to who they're playing. And, I'm not really, he said, I'm not concerned about what Jimmy and Joe's I have out there, but, we're looking at X's and O's and just becoming, better technical football players. And, Combs kind of mentioned that, he's more of a technical guy. And I think that's kind of good. I mean, Hafley was a technical guy, and, having a raw guy and then a technical guy, if you can get them to mix, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, if you still have the high end talent out there and you can get them to learn the position, yeah, I mean, that's a great thing.
Yeah, and he said, hey, they're going to play a lot more than 6 players. So, again, it's crazy to think about the type of rotations they could be coming in with. He talked about Josh Proctor, and he just said Josh is more mature than he was, last year. And, so that's a good sign. He's going to be playing the cover safety, which is the deep safety, which, we've kind of expected. Had a lot of good things to say about Court Williams. Again, it's like everybody likes to throw in a good thing about Court Williams. So I really hope that he stays healthy, because he's going to be, I think, the real deal this year.
Yeah, if he doesn't, at least he's going to be the real deal on special teams.
Yeah. Cam Martinez, it sounds like he's getting a lot of playing time. He's mixing it in. Sounds like he's a good person too. He said that, he thinks he's going to be the president of the United States in, 20 years or whatever. So,
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. So it sounds like he's, being pretty well respected. We talked about the secondary last week, and it's just a lot of raw talent. And that's what he said. They asked him about last year, and he's like, I don't think a lot of people really understand what it's like losing the amount of practices we lost. And, and then having all the COVID stuff, and then you're throwing injuries on top of it. And basically, it's not to make excuses, but, there was a lot of uphill battles, and we didn't get to throw a lot of stuff in that we wanted to do. And we've talked about that too. They were very vanilla in a lot of ways last year, especially on defense.
Right.
And I just think when you're hearing all the stuff about, they're talking about rotations, and every coach on the defense has talked about that, and you're used to hearing about that in the defensive line. But when you hear Al Washington talking about that, and you hear, Matt Barnes talking about that, hey, it's depending on different rotations and coverages and all kinds of different stuff who's coming in. If that doesn't as long as the actual playing can be fairly simple, that there's not a lot to think about within each individual plays, that type of depth could really just kill teams because, I mean, now you think about they're just throwing guys at you to throw guys at you. And, we're going to be fresh at the end of the game and you're not.
Yeah, I know. And when we've talked about it before, just last year, I mean, they didn't have especially in the back end of that defense secondary, they didn't have too deep anywhere.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, you might have 3 deep everywhere.
Yeah.
Like legitimate guys you can have out there. Like, holy crap. I mean, it's going to be so much different.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like they're going to have, especially probably on the outside, you're looking at 2, maybe, they might have 5 guys on the outside. So you might have 2 deep and 3 deep, a third guy that could come in on both sides. But then when you look and hear about in the middle of the field, it's like depending on, are they going more of a safety look? Are they going more of a slot corner look? Well, they have 3 guys that could do either or. I mean, they have 3 guys that are, we're going slot corner. These are the 3 guys we're using here. If we're going a second safety, these are the 3 guys we're using here, and then we have Proctor, still, hey, oh yeah. And if we're going to use the bullet, I mean, he was talking to the bullet. He's like, hey, sometimes my secondary guys works out with the linebackers, and sometimes linebackers come and work out with me. And he's like,
right. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. They're going to want to do everything though.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really, especially because the first 2 weeks are going to be very interesting. You got a team that's going to be really ball control, and then a team that's, even though it's not the Oregon teams of the old Oregon teams, but it's still a team that has good receivers. They're going to try to get it out to their receivers. It's actually Moorhead's their offensive coordinator who used to be at Penn State. We know him. So, they're going to be running a lot of RPO. So it's a lot of, it's a good 2 different types of games that it's going to really challenge a lot of the different aspects of how deep you really are because, you're going to get a ball control Wisconsin style team, to start off with, and then you're going to go more of a kind of a spread that's going to be doing different things with the RPO game. So it'd be very interesting to see how they all hold up against it, especially the secondary.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So, again, he had good things to say. It wasn't a long, some repetitive stuff. He was, again, it always seems like every week there's one of the press conferences you can hear really well, the questions, and then one of the press conferences you can't
hear.
This was the one you couldn't hear. So I was having a hard time following, which guys they were asking him about, especially because they're so young and that I know who's in the receiving room. Like, oh, he's talking about Olave there. If you can't hear a general question in the receivers, like you can tell, who Hartline's talking about. But I'm encouraged about the secondary. I mean, I'm not lying on that. I think that they are going to play a lot better this year. College football is a much different game than it once was, and I don't need the Buckeyes to be a top 10 defense. I need the Buckeyes maybe overall to be a top 10 defense in the running game and just in the scoring defenses. But if they're 70th, I think, last year in passing defense, and some of the categories they were in the hundreds. I thought they were like 100 something in passing defense last year. Maybe it was. But if they can get that to where they're in the 30s, 20s, I mean, that's a unbelievable improvement. And that's like, at that point, then that's a team that could go win a national title because, they're going to be loaded to bear on offense, and they're going to put so many teams behind. Teams might rack up a bunch of passing yards against them, but you're also going to be dealing with an unbelievable defensive line, and there's going to be a lot of mistakes then because you're going to be getting hit when you have to throw the ball as much as other teams are going to have to throw the ball. Your quarterback's going to be left on islands
and stay stingy in the red zone.
Yeah. So. But I'm encouraged what I've been hearing about the secondary. I've been encouraged what I've been hearing about the linebackers. It's just now it's time to see how they now time to take go to the next level and see what you got. So I think we'll take that to our predictions and kind of just so we'll start individual kind of predictions, just what we think all around. So we'll start offensive side of the ball. So what's your general thoughts, like just running back? Who do you think's going to be touchdown wise and yard wise? Who are you saying? Who's the leader in the room on both those categories?
feel like you and I are going to be copying each other a lot on this. We didn't say anything to one another about what we thought was going to be on this, but I just have a hunch that we got the same thought process on some of these. So, we'll go down one at a time. So rushing yards, I'm going with the true freshman Henderson's going to lead the team in rushing yards.
I'm right there with Henderson. I also think, to me, it's either Henderson or Meyer and Williams. I think they're going to be the workhorse backs of the offense to those two.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of, just to be a little different, I'll say Meyer will edge them out. I think they're both going to go over 1,000 yards this year. I think one of them is going to go in between that 1,200 to 1,500 yard range, and the other one's going to be in that 1,000 yard to 1,200 yard range. It's just who gets the ball a little bit more, who breaks the more of the runs. I think Henderson might get the ball less, but could break, higher yardage runs. So it's just a lot to kind of go with on that. But I think we're both going to say the same on the touchdowns. I think Master Teague is going to have just a boatload of touchdowns this year, just because I think every time they get into the red zone or in short down situations, he's the one that's going to, especially as the season goes on, maybe they'll let him earlier in the year kind of, establish the other two guys, and, maybe he'll be the starter. But I think once they get rolling, he's the guy that's going to be, Trevion better not get tripped up going into the red zone or whatever, because he might be coming out for Master Teague to go take his touchdown from him. Master Teague might be the modern version of Pete Johnson, where, if Archie didn't score from 50 yards out, Pete Johnson was getting the touchdown.
That's his touchdown, right? Yeah, I agree with you. And I also think Master Teague, he's going to get some times in games, like I've said before, where teams are going to be kind of worn down towards the end of the halves, and he's going to bust one because, he's fast, he's strong. I mean, straight line speed, that guy's the fastest guy on the team. So yeah. I think he'll get long touchdowns like that, but he's also going to eat up a ton of red zone touchdowns. So I definitely say Master Teague, but I'm going to give Trevion a dark horse on that one that he might end up being, because, he's not a small guy for a freshman running back.
Well. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think if they were going to try to give one of them as the workhorse, if they go into the season with the mindset that I'd rather have one of our guys be a 2,000 yard and then everybody else just fills in, I think that's Henderson. And at that point, I think Henderson gets both the yards and the touchdown. But I think what their thought process is this year is that the ultimate goal is to have as many fresh legs when it comes to the end of the year as possible. So I think they're going to let hot hands roll with the running backs, but I think that they're going to definitely rotate them a lot more than they've done in the last couple years when you had Dobbins, and even last year with, Sermon and Teague, that, they didn't really, outside just those two guys, there wasn't really anybody else that even they attempted to run the ball with.
True or false?
Later in the year.
Marcus Crowley goes over 200 yards against Akron.
I'm going to say true between Akron or Tulsa.
Okay.
It'll be one of them. Might be both of them.
I think he's going to get in early in those games.
He's going to get a lot of opportunities, and that's where he's going to get a shine. That's also going to be the first times we see Quinn Ewers, and I think in those games. So there's actually a stretch in there. Once you get through the first two games, you got Maryland and Rutgers then, or Rutgers and Maryland. And, I think Rutgers is going to be a little bit better, under Schiano. And, Maryland's going to have the talent, but I think you're going to see a lot of the bench in those 4 games in a row.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So we'll go to the receiving side of it. So receiving yards, touchdowns, kind of where you're falling on that,
I'm gonna say, yards is gonna be Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. I think that's probably, I think they're both going over 1,000 yards. That's kind of been my thing too. I think we're going to have 2,000 yard backs and 2,000 yard receivers.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be both of them. but I could see it being Wilson. I think he could have a couple 200-yard games because, I mean, he had almost a couple 200-yard games last year at different points. I mean, there's a couple games he was a $150 plus. I mean, he's just a guy that catches everything, and I think he's even though he's going to be more on the outside, I think he's going to be they're going to use him a lot to, get CJ established early into games to get his confidence going. Like, I could see Ryan Day being very, having a lot of easy throws to both Wilson and Olave next week to start the game against Minnesota because just to get CJ going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, from what I've read on different places, it sounds like, they're using him a lot in like motion as well, just moving him all over while he's there. So, I mean, he might be lined up outside, but he might be motioning in, keeping him moving, kind of like what we saw last year with Alabama and Devontae Smith. So.
Yeah, that's when I was hearing that, I was like wondering, I'm like, is he going to be like the Devontae Smith this year where he's just going to be kind of all over the field and, they're just going to let him create mismatches.
That's what it sounds like.
I mean, if Garrett Wilson, if they get him into a backfield and if there's a tough Borland out there trying to cover him, God forbid. I hope CJ, they better have like some sort of signal to CJ Stroud, be like, hey, there's a slow guy on Garrett Wilson, go find him. Like, they better have a good signal for that.
Right. So what, you're saying Olave is going to be the yards?
I'm going to go with, I'm going to say Olave on the yards just because I think he's going to edge him a little bit. I think Garrett Wilson to me he's going to be the Master Teague of the touchdowns that I actually think that it's not going to be as close on those two on touchdowns. I think every receiver is going to get touchdowns. I think Olave is going to get a lot of touchdowns, but I think Garrett Wilson is going to be, because I think he's the red zone threat. I think he's the, out on the field threat. I think he's going to catch a 10-yard pass and take it to the house. I mean, yeah. He's a threat in a lot of different places. So I think he's going to get the touchdowns and just bunches. I think he'll lead the team easily in touchdown catches.
I like that. I mean, I'm going to go with Olave on that one, though. So I guess we're opposites there.
Yeah.
Until I see something different from CJ Stroud throwing the ball, I'm assuming it's going to look, I know he's not Fields, but I'm assuming the offense is going to run very similar. And there's just going to be a sweet spot from 30 to 50 yards out. And Chris Olave is your guy for the deep ball there. I will say, though, Garrett Wilson does remind me of they both kind of remind me of Devin Smith, how they can get behind, the defenses. Garrett Wilson, though, I mean, he's like Devin. He can high point a ball very well. He's probably one of the best I've seen at this level when it comes to, high pointing a ball.
Yeah. Last thing on receivers. So I think we both agree that they are going to go 6 deep, that the 6 guys, so it's the 6 receivers, not counting Jaden Ballard. They're going to play with, so CJ Stroud's going to at least get 6 guys. Do you think CJ Stroud's going to see 7 guys? We heard a lot of good things about Ballard. We know he's going to be playing in garbage time and stuff like that. But is he going to get some opportunities early in these games where they might run a 7-man rotation? And I'm not saying a 7-man rotation where they're rotating all 7 guys. I'm saying that hey, maybe Ballard's getting rotated in every 3 series or something like that. Just throw another, just to keep the early in games, just to keep them, fresh.
Yeah. It's definitely hard to get 7 receivers in there like that, but I've heard a lot of good things. I don't see why not, but he might just be a guy that's meant for, the 3rd string.
All right. Quarterbacks, I think CJ Stroud, we're both going to say, is going to be leading the team quarterback-wise. I think if, with them picking him as the starter, I have a feeling if we would see a McCord or a Ewers end up taking the starting position, is that there's something that went deeply wrong. I don't think CJ Stroud's Kelly Bryant. I think CJ Stroud is a lot better than Kelly Bryant. I don't even think he's Jalen Hurts. I think he's a lot better than Jalen Hurts. I know there's some people that, Jalen Hurts got drafted and all this stuff, but I've never been impressed with Jalen Hurts. I wasn't even impressed with him with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. that I think that
no, I think he was the worst quarterback out of the four, to be honest with you, that Lincoln Riley's had at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I think he's and when it came to running, I mean, he might be the most dynamic runner out of them, even more so than what the hell?
Kyler.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, he might be faster than Kyler Murray, but I don't know. I thought he was the worst one. I thought Spencer Rattler last year was better than what Jalen Hurts was 2 years ago.
I think, CJ Stroud's better than him. So CJ Stroud, because I just don't think anybody in the Big Ten is going to, I think he's going to be very impressive again in the opener against Minnesota. It might take him a quarter to get going. We're going to talk more about Minnesota in a few days, but I don't think that's going to be a close game at all. I think Ohio State's going to really take them to school once they get into that game and they get comfortable into that game. I think Oregon is probably the test to see how CJ does against Thibodeau. But if CJ Stroud gets through those two games and looks really good, he's not being taken out this year because he will be better by the time he gets to Penn State, and he'll be even better by the time he gets to Michigan. So so he's going to be fine. My question on the quarterback room is, I think I think you're kind of with me that Miller is probably the outside man looking in, just because I think Ewers is going to get more opportunities than him just because they want to see what he can do.
Yeah.
And just because what they recruited him in as. So McCord is the backup going into the season. I think we're all assuming, but at the end of the year, who do you think we see more of? Is it Ewers or is it going to be McCord? Is there coming a point in this season where Ewers passes McCord and that's your backup? And
I don't think so.
And then it becomes a CJ Stroud versus McCord or CJ Stroud versus Ewers come the spring.
I don't think Ewers gets to a point where he's the second quarterback coming out, or, the first guy coming in for garbage time or anything like that. I think McCord's going to keep that all year.
Okay. And I kind of agree. I kind of think that if God forbid, if something happens to CJ Stroud early in the season, I have a feeling we're probably going to see Miller just because because he's been in the system a little longer than the other ones. But I think if something happens later in the season, McCord is probably the guy that they're going to go with. And if something happened to Stroud early in the season, I think it might be initially Miller and then be eventually McCord. That's how the pecking order will end up going. But
I mean, you got to take the job from a guy too. If a guy's not doing anything wrong during the game, I mean, if Jack Miller, if that were to happen and Jack Miller comes in and just absolutely kills it during a game and practices just as well as anyone else, I mean, even if maybe McCord looks better than him, but how can you justify taking someone out if they just absolutely lit a game up, Yeah. So I don't know. That's something I've always, and I know people are and I've even said it, you can't just be the whole, how can you justify replacing somebody? Cause that's Urban wouldn't replace JT, but I don't know. I don't think you can, if someone comes out and they do a great job, I'm not sure how you can replace them if they're doing awesome in the games.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's why I think this is going to be very interesting next year. Cause I know what Ewers can bring to the table, or at least what his potential is. I mean, he's the number one player in the country, but even a year early. So, I mean, it's still insane. But if CJ Stroud goes out, just balls out this year and shows no reason why he should be replaced next year, I don't think he should be replaced next year.
Yeah. And I know we'll get into these hypotheticals later, but after the season, I think we're both probably assuming that one of the four are probably gone before spring football, but it'll be interesting once we start talking about is two of the four are going to be gone before spring football. So here's an interesting one. When you think back to Haskins and then Fields for 2 seasons, these guys are all young, but and maybe it's just because of all the hype and stuff like that. I actually feel better about God forbid if one of the starter goes down like this season than I felt in a long time. Like, probably since JT had Haskins and Joe Burrow behind him that, I felt that, if they have guys with talent behind them, they might be raw talent, but they're guys with talent. So, God forbid something happens to CJ that, they have guys there. Like, I was so terrified if anything ever happened to Justin Fields. Like, even last year, like, CJ Stroud and Miller never got to practice. So I'm like, I don't even want to see them in games. Like in 2019, I definitely didn't. Like, that was, to me in 2019, they could have went from being the best team in the country to, a very average team if Justin Fields, like, cause I didn't have any faith in the backup. So like,
yeah, I mean, with Haskins, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if I was scared about Tate getting a chance or not, but I'm glad it,
I mean, Tate would have did,
I'm glad Haskins stayed healthy.
I mean, Tate would have did fine. I think in Urban's offense, it just would have been it would have been just a much different thing you're thinking about. It's just, it's just something, 2014 is always going to be like, so like always in your back of your head that, and I know that doesn't happen. Like, Cardell Jones going out and winning the national title. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that's not supposed to happen. It's just,
right.
That was the freakiest of freaks that we ended up. I mean, Cardell was just like the perfect guy because he was so headstrong. And then, you had Zeke end up deciding that he was going to be a beast, and everybody just lifted up. The defense even played harder. Like that was just weird, just a different, animal that everybody came to Cardell's, to his side. And, he also rose to the challenge, and, he was ready for it. And,
sure.
So it's just, but for whatever reason, I just feel more comfortable with this backup crew than I felt in a long time that, that at least they got some options there if something happens.
Yeah. All right. Sack leader.
Zach Harrison.
Yeah. Agreed.
He's going to have, I think he's going to end up in the teens.
I like it.
He's going to, I don't know if it's low teens, mid teens. I think he's going to be a big time force to be reckoned with. What's the record? I can't remember it right now. What are we at?
Chase has 16.5.
Okay. So I think Zach, I don't know if he'll get to 16.5 just because there's other options that Chase, he didn't have as an established room on his one, that, and there's much more established defensive ends because I think Tyreek is going to be balling out too. And I expect, Jack Sawyer and JTT and, Baptiste to also get sacks. I think Zach's going to end up somewhere around 13, 14 and lead the team in sacks.
Okay. I mean, I still think he leads the team in sacks. I'm not as bullish as what you're saying. So I'm going to say 11.5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Tyreek could get to double digits too. Like, I think Zach's going to have 14 and Tyreek could very easily have 10 and 11. I mean, there's going to be a lot of sacks to go around.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to hit a lot of people.
Sorry, that ain't dogs barking.
Which one is that? Is that Moose?
That's Zelda. She'll stop. Maybe she won't. I don't know. Let's try to get
it is.
That. It is what it is.
Who do you think is the linebacker sack leader?
I want to say, this is good. I don't think Gant's going to get it as a Mike. Taraj is not as athletic as Browning was. You know what? Give me Kayvon Pope. I think, he's going to get some playing time in there. So I think they're going to find some creative ways. I want to say Craig Young, but you know what? Let's just call him the Bullet. So give me Kayvon Pope on that one.
It's kind of hard for me how to judge is like the Bullet. Are you judging him as a safety or are you judging him as a linebacker when it comes into sacks? But, so yeah, I guess, I like Kayvon. I think it's going to be, I don't know if he's going to end up playing because we've heard some mixed things, whether he's going to be hurt or not, that he's a little injured. right now a little banged up, so it'll be interesting. He plays against Minnesota. I think it's going to be Cody Simon. And I
like that. Yeah. I changed my answer. Cody Simon.
Yeah, I think he's like, just everything I'm hearing about him. He's just a freak of nature, and he's going to be all over the field. And that's what it sounds like he's doing right now. So,
I like that.
Yeah, I'll say him. Defensive tackles, not so much maybe who leads the team in tackles for loss there? Is it Haskell? Is Haskell doing this? Like he's gonna blow some people up in the hole, I think. Or one of the other guys? I think it's
Haskell. No, I say Haskell is going to lead the team, at least in the interior for tackles for loss.
I think Haskell's going to get drafted in a very nice position because I think he's going to really take what he did last year and take that to the next level. I'm expecting big things out of him. I think he really turned a corner last year, and I don't know, LJ kind of mentioned this in his thing a couple of weeks ago that, he had to come back from such a traumatic experience of being shot that, it's just like, it was like everything changed though, like right then. And it was just like, it was like a complete corner changer for him or Turner. And I think he's going to be he's going to be a beast to be reckoned with. And I think he kind of feels like, those defensive tackles from 2014 to me that's just disruptive.
I like it. Yep, I agree.
Interceptions. Who's leading this team?
I think the safe pick is Josh Proctor.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And with that being said, Cam Martinez.
I like that. We're hearing so many good things from Cam Martinez. It sounds like he's a ball hawk too. It just sounds like he's, Ohio State's going to get challenged in the slot, and that's going to be very interesting to see how they line up. I expect Oregon's going to have a lot of game plans about attacking us into the middle of the field because, I hate to say it, outside of 2019, that's been our kryptonite for a while. So I'm expecting, and possibly Minnesota too. I am expecting Minnesota to have some good tight ends, just the style that they play. So I'm expecting different things to the middle of the field. I like that pick for Cam Martinez. I'm going to say Proctor. I think he's just going to be a ball hawk in the middle of the field. And I expect him to lead it. Who do you think is the outside? Is it Seven? Is that Seven leading the team on the outside in picks, or is he just not going to get the ball thrown enough at him? So it's got to be Cam Brown or Legend or whoever.
I don't think they're going to go after him that much. So I'm going to say that's hard, man, because I think Seven's the best, but I just don't think they're going to challenge him enough. So
Kuda never got challenged enough, but Arnett rose to so I think whoever on that side of the field is going to rise to the occasion. I also like Ryan Watts. I love that length, and like the more I'm hearing about him is like, I think he could do a lot of nasty things this year. Same with Denzel Burke. It's like, I'm really getting pretty psyched about the outside right now because I think there's a lot of guys that are going to play, and
I'll say Cam Brown leads the team in interceptions. I don't really got a reason why, but I just don't think Seven's going to get challenged enough.
I think Seven's going to be such he's going to kind of feel like, I think Seven Banks is going to, because Okudah was such a well-known name coming into the team. I think Seven Banks to us is going to feel like kind of Denzel Ward. He's going to end up getting drafted like 5th and be like, what the hell did he do last year to deserve the 5th pick? And then you're like how Denzel Ward, like when I remember the Browns drafted Ward, I'm like, I know he was like, it was a couple days prior to that. There was some rumors from the Browns on Browns radio that, they're looking at Denzel Ward with that pick. And I'm like, why Denzel? Like, I mean, I'm a Buckeye homer is a Buckeye homer. And, I've always bitched that, Ohio State or Cleveland don't draft enough Buckeyes, but like, why? And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, he never really got he didn't really do anything last year. And then I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, maybe he just never got the ball thrown at him, because he was that good.
Yeah. If they're not throwing at you, that usually means you're that good. And it's worked out. It's worked out nicely for the Browns.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think it's going to be somebody on that side of the field. Cam Brown is a good one.
But I'm still saying Cam Martinez total for the team. He's number one.
I like that. I think he's we're just hearing so many good things about him. And I think they're really going to want to try to get back there's going to be times when they need that slot guy because they're going to be playing a lot of spread teams this year. All right. So that's kind of like all the big stat things. I mean, I guess we could say fumbles, but I really hope they get a lot more interceptions and fumbles. That's like the one thing that seems like it's been missing over the last few years is just that they don't create as many turnovers as they once did. And, I remember the times where they were such a turnover machine and, I just want them to be a little bit more opportunistic. I love sacks. I hope we get a lot of sacks still. And it seems like we have never been hurting for sacks. It seems like we always have a defense end that's going to put you on your butt several times throughout a season, and we'll have multiples of those guys. I would like to see interceptions and fumbles, and because instant changes with our offense, you get a quick instant change of the field where you just pick the ball off at the 50, or you got a fumble at the 30, and it's like, I mean, that's like almost a guaranteed touchdown.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, here's one for you. Trey Henderson, is he your starting returner? And does he take one to the house either from kickoff or punt? I don't care, but does he take one finally? Is the streak broken and we get a special teams return touchdown?
I'm going to say no because and I know last year was a COVID year, but I'm pretty sure I guaranteed Garrett Wilson was going to have a touchdown last year. And,
he never did.
Didn't happen. Anymore, DeMario has scared me so many times, and I've remembered other guys in the past is like, anymore with our offense, I just want things to be fielded cleanly. Like, get the kickoff and get it at least to, whether it's by a touchback or by you getting it there, get it to at least the 25, 30 yard line. And, and if it's a punt, just catch it.
or let your offense do its thing. Yeah.
So I'm going to say no. Just, he'll probably have 4 this year.
I hope so.
It'll be the reverse.
Hell of a good season.
Yeah. I mean, do you think he will?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
Okay. So let's start thinking maybe just quickly big picture season wise. So are you in agreement with me? The 2 toughest games they're playing is the first 2 games of the year. And that's not to take anything away from Indiana, Penn State, or Michigan. I just think they're going to be I think the best opportunities to beat them are going to be Minnesota and Oregon just because – and I think, like I said earlier, I think they're going to handle Minnesota. But I just think that's the best opportunity. They're still young at the quarterback. I think C.J. Stroud's going to be pretty settled in by the time Indiana and Penn State roll around, and they're going to be just full steam ahead by the time Michigan comes.
I mean, maybe Penn State's harder than Minnesota. I do like and Minnesota's returning a ton of people. I don't know. And I know they got Tanner Morgan coming back. I'm not sure how they are at tight end. I'll read more about them this week, leading in. So maybe I'll have more to say, but I think their top returning receivers and I just think Minnesota's going to try to do a lot of stuff that Ohio State's always been good at stopping. And so I'm not sure, if all they can do is run the ball, I'm not sure how long they even stay in that game that they can,
and that's the thing. I think that they're just going to be in a lot of second and longs maybe they can pass the ball to get into third and shorts but that's putting a lot on them as they're used to having second and medium. That's kind of where they want to be playing with. Ohio State just don't give up rushing yards, and Minnesota has a really good offensive line. I get that, but this is the best defensive line they're going to play all season.
Right. And, we've heard that stuff so many times though about how much Wisconsin, they have a huge offensive line and how much they run all over everybody and they never run on Ohio State. Or like Saquon Barkley a couple years back, he was he had a huge touchdown to start the game. He had a big touchdown run, I think from 30 yards out or something. I think he ended the game with 40 rushing yards. It's just teams don't run on Ohio State that easily.
No.
And I know 2018, what was his name? Is it Anthony McFarland that was from Maryland? Like, you know, that guy.
That was such a weird year because
you could run
the ball in Ohio State that year, and that's usually that doesn't happen often.
Well, they had so many breakdowns at the second level. If anyone ever got past the line on that team, it was scary because you didn't know. You know, I think usually the goal line was the only thing stopping the guys. So that was, that was a rough year, but I don't see us repeating that. So I agree. Minnesota has the potential to be one of the two hardest games of the regular season. I don't know. It really depends what our defense does, because if our defense shows up to stop the run, stop tight ends, I don't know how long they stay in that game.
It's just the first game of the year. I mean, there's a lot of known things about Ohio State, but there's a lot of unknown things about Ohio State. And it is a tough, kind of change of pace that you're going from a Minnesota ball control offense to you're going to Oregon. Then it's going to be more of a spread it around type of team. Both have, you know, world-class defensive ends. I mean, Thibodeau's obviously, there's a good chance Thibodeau could be the first pick in the draft. That's what a lot of people are saying. And, you know, so it's just, I think that, but okay. So what's a tougher 2-game stretch? Is it Minnesota, Oregon, or is it Indiana, Penn State?
I would say Minnesota, Oregon is going to be your tougher 2-game stretch. I got to see Indiana do it again before I buy into them. And Penn State's interesting because they still got Noah Cain, right, as a running back. So, he's good. I just what's his face? Clifford. Clifford's not that guy, though. He's not going to be, you know, a guy that's going to really challenge you to do a ton of things.
He's not McSorley. And you know,
Yeah, I agree. Not.
The only thing that worries me about Penn State coming up in the season is I have this weird feeling that Ohio State's going to really want to embarrass Indiana. And just because there's been so much shit said about Ohio State, you know, pardon my language, from the Indiana side. And I know that these guys, you say you just play, some of that stuff is getting back to the coaching staff. And who the hell are these guys, thinking that, all right, we're going to go put them in their place. They lost that game last year. They didn't deserve anything, you know.
Right.
And, you know, and I know Allen, you know, he said some good things about Ohio State in the media days. He wasn't stupid about that. You know, they are the top. That's what we want to be, is them. And, you know, so, that was the right thing to say. He didn't throw any more logs on the fire, but it's just, I think a lot of stuff gets back, and, you know, I think some of that stuff is, you know, you guys aren't in our league yet. And, you know, so and Penn State's a tough game, I think, to come off as a second game to that. Where maybe I think Oregon, they're going to be focused for Oregon. They're going to be laser focused for both these two teams because, you know, Minnesota's the first game, and then you get a couple extra days to prepare for Oregon, and you'll be focused for Oregon.
Yeah, I could see it. Penn State, you know, a lot of times they're no picnic to play. They got good talent on their team. I don't know. I don't buy into Clifford that much. So, yeah. And I could be wrong. This could be his year.
Throwing away, sorry. Throwing away last year, is our defense 2018 or is our defense 2019? If you had to say that they're going to be closer to which defense, you know.
I think 2019. I give the Buckeyes the benefit of the doubt that they're going to have a better defense than not, you know, any year. So they still recruit high end defensive players.
Yeah, I agree. I like the coaching staff. I think they got to put in a lot this year that they didn't get to put in last year. And and for as much COVID issues as they had, it seemed like the majority of those COVID issues were all on the defensive side of the ball, and their biggest injuries were on the defensive side of the ball. It was a cluster, you know what, in the back end. I think the defense that I think they're just not going to have this year. Any things you want to throw out for team wise?
Nope. I'm just excited to be at this point. So, we'll have our actual Minnesota preview next week before the game, probably Wednesday night or something. But
are they going 12-0? Are they going into the Big Ten championship undefeated?
It's so hard to say yes on that because it's so hard to go undefeated in a regular season, especially a third one in a row, even though last year was only, a 5-game regular season. But I just don't see who's going to beat them especially in the Big Ten. But I don't think Oregon's going to beat them. And yeah, I'm going to say they're 12-0 going into Indianapolis.
I think that and I know you can't say from one coach to the next and all that stuff, but it always seems like when they're chasing something, they are usually laser focused. And it's when they win the national title, then that's when they get complacent and drop games after the seasons later that they should never have dropped. But until they get over that mountain, I'm going to say they're going to still go undefeated. I don't see anybody in this conference beating them.
I don't see anyone being close to them, really. I think they're going to win by more than 10 points every game.
So 10 points is double digits. Do you think they'll win by double digits every game, or do you think they're going to win by 2 touchdowns every game? I'm going to say 2 touchdowns. I'm going to go crazy on the limb. They're going to beat every team that they play on their schedule by 14 points or more.
I like it.
And that includes Oregon and Minnesota. And those might be close games early in the stuff while they're feeling things out. That's the type of confidence I have in this team because I don't know where they're going to score less than 40 points in a game this year. And, I heard a stat the other day that I never knew before. It was on Girdham and Tom Moore. So the Buckeye Scoop, their Buckeye Weekly, show. I was listening to their podcast. They've only lost one game in the history of the program when they've scored 35 points or more, and they've tied one. So
yeah, it was Clemson in 2013.
Yeah. So if they get to 40, I just don't, not until you get to the playoffs, I don't know who you're going to lose to. Because I don't see any Big Ten team, them getting to 40, I don't see any Big Ten team getting over 21 points. So
right. I mean, yeah, I'm sure Penn State and Indiana might be able to get over 21 points. I don't think either one can score 40 on Ohio State though.
No. So yeah, I think in 2019, and I don't remember how the Wisconsin the championship game went, but I think Penn State was they were the best showing. They lost by, was it 10 points, 13 points,
10 or 11.
Yeah. So
it's definitely at least 10.
Yeah. So I think they're going to beat everybody by 14 plus. That's what I think. This is the deepest. When you recruit at this level, the way they've been, this is literally the deepest they've ever been. And that's crazy to think of.
Oh, I know. I mean, I'm kind of there with you. I'll say 10. I'll say they're going to win every game by at least 10. I won't go as they're going to win every game by 14, but it could happen. I mean, I think they're that much better than everyone until they get to the playoffs.
All right. So I think unless you have anything else, we'll call it a night on this one. A lot to unpack tonight, but
hey man, I would love to see the Cornhuskers win tomorrow. I'm going to throw that out there for our Nebraska fans. Not sure it's going to happen. But outside of that, yeah, I'm good. So thank you everyone for stopping in tonight at the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added. And please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.